This one's for anyone who wants to quit their job and start a business so they have freedom to pursue their passion and have time freedom so they don't have to ask their boss if they can take their kid to the doctor. We cover a proven business model on this podcast called wholesaling real estate, where you can make a big finder's fee for finding a rundown house and passing it to an investor. A huge marketing strategy in this realm is cold calling. So I've actually got my 5-year veteran who's been cold calling for me all this time, named AJ, straight from the Philippines, so that if you wanted to cold call, you can use his tips, or if you wanted to find someone like AJ to help you cold call, we tell you exactly what's important and how we found each other to build a lasting relationship that's generated a lot of deals. This is the podcast for 10xing your income and replacing your W-2. My name is David Lecco. I created a process that's helped people close 10,000 deals in all 50 states with the software platform called DealMachine. And my co-host is Ryan Haywood, who's done 425 deals in St. Joseph, Missouri, ever since he quit his job back in 2019. AJ, thank you so much for putting together these cold calling tips. I see you've got 10 tips, and you're coming to us straight from the Philippines, where you've actually cold called for me on properties here in my own backyard. And for some reason, AJ, people love talking with you. I've gotten emails specifically that said, "Hey, David, I just want to let you know I talked to AJ, and man, that guy is special." So what I'm trying to do is find what your special sauce is, AJ, for those who are trying to cold call, because you have a great way with people, and I'm so excited to share this. So your first tip is stay calm and collected. Can you tell me a little bit about that, your philosophy there?
Yes, definitely. So everyone would, what I'm trying to say is cold calling is not really easy, especially if you're not sure what to expect. Before you even call the person, you think about the rejections, all of the bad things they could say to you, all of the bad things that could go wrong, right? But when those thoughts come to your mind, you need to stop. You need to stay calm and collected. Just make sure that you are relaxed before cold calling anyone. Maybe drink coffee, have some music play in the background. Just make sure you turn that off when you start calling, because it all starts with your mood. You just have to be relaxed and just think that you're helping them out.
Yeah, man. Before I make important calls, I get nervous, and I don't even want to type the number in because I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So, but those are really good tips for you to kind of stay calm. So I think the next time I cold call, I might draw a hot bath, and bring my phone into there, because I know I'd be calm then. The next one is shift your mindset.
I just got a visual of that.
The next one is shift your mindset. So I think what you mean by this is you can get selfish and you can feel like, oh, I got to make this happen. I got to make this deal work. But if you shift your mindset and you think, man, if I get in touch with the right person, I could truly help them out of a bad situation. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yes, definitely. So what I do is I approach each call with the mindset that I'm there to actually offer help and solutions, not just to basically buy a property. So this helps me approach the conversations in a more empathic way. And the rejections that I get are not really that hurting, or it doesn't hurt me at all, because I know that I'm offering value for them. And if they reject what I'm offering and it's something of value, it doesn't make me feel bad, because what I'm thinking of is they're losing from rejecting my offer or saying bad things to me because of the things that I have to offer, instead of me losing them like as a prospect or as a possible house that we could buy.
Yes. So one of my best friends, Shashank, or Sean, he's a dating coach. So he makes content about dating. And one of the things that stuck with me was, he's like, you feel nervous when you're going to walk up and approach someone because you need something from them. And it doesn't feel good to need something from anyone. So in order to get rid of that nervous feeling, just don't need anything. Like, don't have an expectation, but instead offer something, offer like a kind comment with no need in the world. And that would alleviate some of that nervous feeling. So it kind of reminded me of that too. Your third one is a lukewarm cold calling strategy. So why don't you tell me about that? I haven't heard that one exactly.
Yes, this is something that DealMachine users actually could take advantage of. But the same goes for anyone who is into like real estate investing. The idea here is to not just cold call people randomly. Of course, you can still do that, but lukewarm cold calling, as we call it, is a different approach. What happens here is there is initial contact, and usually that contact is through mail marketing. It could be something else. But the idea there is you're preparing that person. You're putting in their mind that someone is interested in their property. So when you cold call them, say after maybe a week or a couple of days, it's not cold calling anymore because they know that you're interested and you're putting in the extra work, not just by sending them a piece of mail, but also giving them a call.
Love that. Yeah, so that you could say like, oh, hey, you got my postcard last week. Now it's me calling again, following up on that. That's what you mean, right? Rather than explaining who you are from scratch.
Yep, that's it.
Beautiful. I like the name too, lukewarm, piqued my interest. Customize your approach. What does that mean? You using a script?
Well, first and foremost, I do use a script, but I'm not bounded by it. Okay, so what I'm saying is I basically tailor every conversation with the information I find in the property card or whatever property information I have. So say I see that the customer bought this property for maybe over or 20 years ago. I usually incorporate that in the conversation, ask things like, I see you've stayed here for quite some time. Is there like something specific that you really love about this property? So instead of you talking, you basically use the information you get about the property to make them talk, right? Because the more they talk, the more you understand what they need, what is it they want, and then you could tailor your approach and make sure that you're offering value based on what you get from them.
Right. I found the script is helpful for your first sentence, but after that, if they say something, it's actually better just to comment on what they said rather than try to stick to some script.
Definitely. It kind of feels weird, right? If you don't hear any comment for something you say when you're on the phone, it's like the other person's not even listening.
Which kind of ties in.
Well, what they're doing is they're searching for that next sentence. So what about, it's like it just totally takes the personal approach versus you just adjust to what they're saying and have a conversation with them. For them, it feels a lot easier to have that conversation. I'm an impatient person. So if I'm having a conversation with you and we're having an active conversation about real estate and all of a sudden there's a pause because you're looking for the next.
Yeah.
Okay. How many bedrooms do you have? It just breaks all of it. It totally breaks the vibe.
It does. It do. What actually ties right into your next tip, AJ, was practice active listening. So any more to speak on that, or do you think we've covered it?
Well, practice active listening. I want to emphasize that you need to shift your focus. You need to be listening attentively, not to prepare your answer, but to understand what the person is really saying. Because most of the time we listen just so we could respond without really understanding what that person has to say. And if you truly listen, the other person would feel that over the phone, and it would help them open up to you a bit more and make them feel more comfortable. At least that's what I have experienced in my personal cold calls.
Got it. Talk about number 6, follow a script, but be flexible. You kind of touched on that, but would you mind giving us like maybe what your first sentence of the script looked like? And Yeah, let's start there.
All right. Well, basically, I open it. It depends on who talks first, but usually I would say, "Hi, I'm AJ. I'm working for this company," or I would usually say I'm working for DealMachine for real estate investing, and I'm actually calling about a property I believe you own at 123 Red Alert Drive. And then from there, they would respond, and usually I would ask if the person I'm talking to is the person who owns that property, and then I go from there. If I talk to like a relative, I would not directly ask for the owner's contact number. I would have more conversation with them, and I would basically tell them what I do, why I'm calling, and things like that.
Hey guys, if you know you want to quit your job in the next 3 months, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast because we've got some incredible frameworks with step-by-step instruction that you're not going to want to miss. Also, leave us a rating and review to let us know your favorite parts and why you want to get financial freedom.
Got it. And you mentioned the property too that they're talking about.
I like to think of it too, like there's a difference between a map, a paper map, and there's a difference between a GPS. Like you don't want to be on GPS mode on these cold calls because all you're doing is looking at the screen and staying on the track. But a paper map, which isn't used hardly at all anymore, but you look at a paper map and there's tons of roads or tons of options that still lead you to your destination, but you could go anywhere, and there's an off road I can take here to still get me where I want to go. So I always, when I'm explaining to our team, I'm like, you have a script, but just use it as a map. Like it's only going to help you get from here to here. Don't sit on it on a script basis. Your whole call will fall apart if you're doing that.
Totally.
Yep, totally agree. And I would like to add, David, in there that when you're starting, just like what you said, a script really helps. But eventually, what you'll just need is like a flow chart of the things you would need to do depending on what the other person says or how he responds.
Got it. Well, number 7 is highlight your unique value proposition. So how do you communicate that? You're not calling to list their house. You're not calling to give them the highest offer. Like what's your version of saying that?
Well, it was easy for me because I was working for you, and I would just say that I have a business partner who is into buying real estate, or buying properties in the area. And I usually tell them, like most people do, that we can buy the property as is, and we could pay with cash. And if they're like interested, or if they're having issues, or if they have any problems and they couldn't sell the property, would love to talk to them even more so that we could see if there's a way we can help them out with the issues and the problems they have.
Yeah. Something tells me it's because you're so tuned into what they're saying that for once they actually feel heard rather than just scripted and steamrolled over. I think that's why that guy sent me that email. Let's talk about number 8 as we're rolling up to number 10. You need to address their concerns with empathy and authority. What do you mean by that?
Okay. Well, we're doing business, right? We all know that we are in the business of buying properties. That essentially means that while we're doing business, we still have to act as human beings, right? It's if the person says something really sad, or if the person is sharing a problem, what I normally do is I try to imagine how hard it feels and what that person is feeling right now, and then I just respond the way I see fit, and usually that would involve speaking a little bit slower, using a softer tone of voice, or things like that. Now, the difference is when someone's yelling at you and saying bad things, of course, you're not there to be humiliated, or you're not calling anyone to hear bad things. So you have to address that with authority. But always remember that we are doing business here. So even though we're addressing it with authority, we have to remain respectful. So if they want us to remove their name and their house from our list, of course, we'll do that. And again, just don't allow yourself to hear bad things all the time, because that takes a toll on you, and it's not fun.
Well, let's talk about something that is fun, which would be number 9, ending calls positively, no matter what the outcome of the call is.
Yep. So, what I normally do here when they answer is, by the time I get off the phone with them, I would have learned something about that person. So, say her dog's name is Jesh, then I would say, all right, well, I'll sure miss Jesh. She was really participative all throughout this call. And I do hope to call you again and talk more about this. Now, if the person is not happy, but not abusive at the same time, I would just say something along the lines of, I am really sorry that I called you, and I know you're not interested, but at the same time, I'm happy that I got the chance to talk to you. If ever you're interested, or if you know someone who is willing to sell his or her property, you do have my number. You can give me a call anytime.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's such a regret.
Well, I could give a little bit of... I give a little input on this too. When I sold shoes for Foot Locker, they trained you to treat the returns as a sale. Like, no matter what, if somebody's bringing let's say yesterday they came in, they bought 3 pairs of shoes and some socks and some shoe cleaner, and then the next day they're bringing it all back in, treat that as a sale. And at first I was like, that sounds stupid. But after you've seen it in action a couple times, you understand the reason why you're going to do that is because they're going to remember how you treated them when they said no. Like, when they're returning these shoes, like, these are the wrong size, or I don't need these, I need the money back. Whatever, I'm not interested in selling my house right now. But how you respond to that is what may lead to a future deal, or may lead them to come back to you. So I've always implemented that, and that was 20 years ago that I heard that. But I've let that one stick with me all the way through into real estate, is even if they're saying no, treat it as they're saying yes in the way that you respond to them. Thank you for your time. If there's anything else you need help with, let me know. Or even just a simple thank you for your time. If they're mad, no, I'm not interested. Thank you for your time.
That's a great tip, Ryan.
And always... Yeah,
I'm going to start thinking.
Thank Foot Locker for that one.
Last but not least, AJ, can you talk about evaluating and adapting? Like, how do you evaluate your success on these cold calls?
Okay, well, I have this metric where I measure, or essentially I quantify the calls I make. So say I make 500 phone calls, I would measure how many of those went to voicemail, how many of those actually went to a voicemail that was automated, or a voicemail that had a name, or how many of those calls were to an actual person. If the actual person is the owner, a relative of the owner, or someone he is working with. So I would usually, what I did there is I measured that, and I see that the more I call, essentially it's just that. The more you call, the more people you'll get to talk to. So say it takes around 500 calls to get to 5 people, then you'll have to make more calls. That's what you need to do. And one additional thing that I did, because I love studying things, is I checked the time when people were most likely to answer. And based on my experience, I shared this on the Facebook group. Usually, they would respond or answer more on a weekend, usually on a Saturday, around, I would say, 9 a.m., around that time. I guess that's just because they're home. But on weekdays, I usually don't get like a lot of answers, usually just voicemails.
Gotcha. Well, that was all 10 tips, AJ. And I love that you tested over the time of cold calling, figure out when is it that most people answer, and using that to calibrate how you can be more efficient and effective going forward. I'm sure those listening are like, how do I get to work with someone as good as AJ? And the thing that I've got to tell you guys is AJ has a gift, and I will only take a small credit for this good partnership. We did find each other when I posted a job on onlinejobs.ph, and then he responded, as did hundreds of other people. So how did I find someone as thoughtful as AJ? I didn't teach him to be thoughtful, but I had a little bit of a test project, and it was a 2-minute video. So everyone who applied, they said, hey, send me a 2-minute video. I want you to tell me about, the city you live in, teach me something interesting, and teach me something about, where you live, the Philippines, something like that. And then maybe 200 people applied, maybe 20 people sent me that video. And it was AJ's video that I could tell, like, it just really stood out on how thoughtful and expressive he was. I mean, so basically, I basically wanted to let you guys know you can't really teach someone all of these skills that AJ has. It's kind of like a natural talent. It's in his DNA. And that might be how you could find someone that may have that too. So AJ, what was your experience when you received that test project, by the way? It's a little bit unconventional.
Great. Well, before I answer that, I would just want to say that getting out of bed and recording that video is still the best thing that I did in my life this last 5 years. So
that's right. We've been working together for 5 years. We didn't say that.
Yep, 5 years. So I would just say that the test project that you did just basically measures how interested a person is, which is important if you're trying to look for a virtual assistant that you could work with. Many people who will be applying will be sending just the same application or maybe edit it, but adding that extra step of recording that video, going through paid training, and even taking an exam after that just ensures that you get the best person among those that applied. Because once you hire the right person, the rest becomes a whole lot easier. Training is easier, communicating with them is easier. So everyone has to focus on their hiring process, that is.
Good point. I hate it when somebody changes their whole life to take a new full-time job, and then, it doesn't work out a month later, and it's so disruptive, right? And so what I tried to do was, AJ mentioned after the test project, then we had an 8-hour paid training, right? So it's like, I will pay AJ his full salary to try out a day of working with me. And what he did was he studied how we do things. He studied how we do things at our company. And then at the end of that, I had 10 questions that he had, I think, an hour to answer and send back. So it just kind of gauged, how much was he able to take away from that. And then what we did was a month-long test period where he would also, be able to evaluate working with us and working with him before we did a full-time commitment. So when it came time, I think we both really liked working with each other. So going full-time was not really a huge change at that point. But what it did was set expectations of, hey, we just want to give you the opportunity to evaluate us as much as we evaluate you, and come in with full transparency while still honoring your time to get paid for that. So just a little insight on how we found each other and how we were able to join forces and create something that's lasted for over 5 years, which I'm super thankful for. But with that, AJ, I'm wondering, do you have any final, one final piece, the most important thing that you would give somebody who's looking for their first gift?
Okay, well, this comes from a book I read called Atomic Habits. The biggest takeaway I have there is do not focus on the goal, which is counterintuitive, but focus on the process to get to that goal. So enjoy building your processes. Making mistakes is part of it. Just don't feel bad. Just trust the process. Enjoy the journey. And eventually, the time, the sweat, and the devotion will all pay off.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, AJ. I really appreciate you sharing this with us tonight.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.